Hi, everybody. You probably forgot this channel existed, but it does exist. Welcome back to Pixel Lore, where we go ahead and review some fantastical shows that aren't Doctor Who, because we have another channel for that. I'm Professor Pixel, and I'm joined by Landry Quinn Wizard. He walks with wizards.
Hello, I'm here again.
Yeah, you are here again. Yes. And yeah, we're here for season 2 of Rings of Power, episode 1 and 2. Just those two. We know there's 4 episodes out, but we'll review the next 2 next week, and then the following 2 the week after that. We'll catch up.
Okay. So I just got to jump in with one thing. One, it's hard to believe it's been 2 years since the last season, because after the fever pitch of the insanely positive fan reaction to season 1, it's amazing they were able to keep it under wraps for so long, and people didn't just like storm Amazon and tear it from the shelves and watch it early, because we all know it was a favorite show of the 21st century to date. And so it's just amazing that it's been 2 years already.
It is strange that it's been 2 years since we've done this, because you had already been on Doctor Who for a little bit.
Yeah, like a year at that point. We've been doing this a while.
Then we all wanted to talk about this show. Even if the last season didn't end how all of us would have liked, but that's fine.
And then, of course, I bullied you into doing it again this year.
You did. I almost didn't. I almost didn't watch it either, which, you know what, actually would have been in error, I feel. Just to go ahead and say, I wasn't looking forward to coming back, because that ending of that first season was not good. I just remember I was very wasn't liking the turn of things.
You didn't like a sword shard that was a key that was making a river flow through tunnels that hadn't been dug yet to make a volcano active. Now, I didn't have a problem. Dump a river into a volcano. That's what's going to happen. But still, the sword, of course, it was. Oh God, no, I can't even. There were problems with the first season.
So many problems.
Yeah.
You know what? It's kind of hard to remember those problems, because when I sat down and I watched episodes 1 and 2 today, I was actually delightfully surprised.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. You are far more knowledgeable about Second Age, all of that.
Sure.
I'm not. I got the books that I have, which I got the 3, and then I got The Hobbit as well, and then I've watched those movies. Unfortunately, I've seen all the Hobbit movies. No, I haven't seen the last one. I never saw the last one because.
Oh, the last one's terrible. I loved the first 1.5 extended editions. The second half of the second one and the third one are not good movies.
Okay, good to know. But yeah, so I've seen most of the Lord of the Rings that I can. We still have to do the Bakshi one. But yeah, I'm not proficient in anything before The Hobbit. So this is all new information.
Well, this is good. This is good because and especially in the 2 years since we did this, I've become much more proficient in my knowledge about Second Age. I dug in really deep these last 2 years. I'm not even kidding. I really did. So we're going to have a good balance here, because we have to judge this show for what's on screen ultimately.
Yes.
And that also goes beyond sitting there and comparing it to, well, this is what it should have been. Well, there's all sorts of reasons why it may or may not be. Let's judge it for the thing it is, and then discuss what it may have been able to be.
So I'm going to go ahead and admit the big reveal at the end of the first season is that Halbrand was actually Sauron all along.
Dun, dun, dun.
We all knew something was bad with the guy. Something was shady. It was an unfortunately predictable thing. It was almost unpredictable in the way that they're not really going to do something so stupid like that, are they? Yes, they did. Anyway, we get to go ahead and see at the beginning of this first episode the whole lead up into where we meet him in the first season. Which honestly felt a little unnecessary. It was almost like padding, because everything that we saw We already knew that kind of happened.
Yeah.
It was already
Yeah.
explained, so why'd you show it? But the good news is that after that, it becomes pretty interesting. Everything that happens, because you have the stranger that's going to be so obviously Gandalf. It's
Oh no, that's not Gandalf.
really
That's not. I said this. I said this when we reviewed season 1. It's not Gandalf, and it's still not Gandalf.
okay. If you believe that, I'll let.
Okay, and I have lore to back me up on this, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Okay. I will admit I still do like the little halflings that they got there. They're nice. They're bubbly. They're cute.
It's hard to do it without. I know that they're not part of the second age in the books and the material, but they're fun, and people expect to see them.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah.
It's not in any way because they are literally just walking in the desert for these 2 episodes. So it's not like it's, oh my gosh, halflings every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Harful.
So I've really enjoyed this return. I already broke it down on how I would have written it if I were writing it, and how I would have been more concise, and how I would have made it just sharper, and it would have attended to the lore better, and also broken the lore more. I said this when we watched season 1 and we reviewed it, is like, who should Sauron, when the whole mystery of which one is Sauron, I said back then, they all should have been Sauron. Sauron should have been whispering secrets, or whispering discontent in every kingdom possible, and pushing people, whispering the dwarves to mine deeper, like whispering to the elves to seek mithril, whispering to the humans to in the Numenorians to rally against their king or queen, whispering to the Southerns, all of it. Sauron should have been everywhere, because ultimately one of my problems with Sauron, and this is true in the books, is Sauron is his plans kind of suck. He never wins. He's not like Palpatine. Palpatine has a brilliant plan in the prequels. Even though the prequels are not, in my opinion, great movies, Palpatine's plan is amazing. In the books, Sauron just loses over and over again. Here's one for you, and I'm wondering if you know this. How many rings do you think Sauron, and we're going with the older lore here, how many rings do you think Sauron made for men?
What was it? Wasn't it like 8?
9 is what people usually say. How many for dwarves?
6?
It's 7, but let's go with the real answer. 0. He made 0 rings for men and dwarves. He made no rings for them. He made 16 rings for elves. The elves figure it out and say, oh, no, dude, we don't want those. We're going to go make 3 of our own, and you can just go off with those, and we're not touching those. So most people don't know that. He revises his plan when he realizes the elves are onto him, and then he goes into to the dwarves and the men and go, hey, you want some rings? And they're like, yeah, we want some rings. So it's a revision because his plans keep failing. And obviously they're going in a different direction with Rings of Power. And I actually really liked this part about season 1, where I felt like they were setting us up for an arms race. Because in the lore, the 3 elven rings are made last by Celebrimbor without Sauron, but using what he learned from Sauron. And the end of season 1, they do the opposite. They make the 3 elven rings first. But what did they show us in season 1 is the dwarves are angry at the elves. They feel used by the elves. They've been attacked by elves over centuries or thousands of years. The humans feel bullied and controlled by the elves. They don't like the elves. And now what? The elves just made themselves a secret weapon, a superpower. It's an arms race now. So when I saw the end of season 1, I thought, Sauron is now going to go and use this. He's going to go to the humans and go, you know what they did? They got themselves magic rings. What are you going to do? You want some rings? Let me help you. You need it, because those elves are going to take you over and enslave you again. Hey, dwarves, guess what? They want your mines. They want your gold. They want your mithril. You know what you need? Some rings, because they have one of their own, and they made it using stolen mithril. Let me help you. Let's get you some rings. I feel like that's where we're going to some degree with this season, and it's a different take, but I approve it. It works. It doesn't have to follow Tolkien's lore. This is a spin-off series that Tolkien never wrote. He wrote it in notes, in little bits. This is a new take, and I have no problem with that. Let it be its own thing.
Yeah, yeah, because ultimately, you can go watch The Hunt for Gollum or whatever they're going to
Right?
call it when it comes out.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch
Yeah. I'm going to watch it. We've talked about this before, and if Jimmy were here, he'd go, "What?" But I don't love Jackson's adaptations, and no one agrees with me on this, that I am enjoying Rings of Power more than Jackson's adaptations. But it comes from, I know, but let me explain. It's not, and I'll tell you why. And I think when I say this, you're going to, let's see. I think I can get you to agree with me, and this is going to surprise you. The problem with Jackson's adaptations is when you look at them next to what Tolkien actually wrote, there are a lot of changes. Is it better than Rings of Power? Technically, yes. But the thing is, they didn't need to change anything. They had it written by Tolkien himself there. Like you take Eowyn's facing the Witch King in the book, the dialogue is some of the most amazingly beautifully written dialogue I've read. It's thou shalt not hinder thee. It's all this just amazing dialogue. And in what becomes no man may hinder me, it's like nobody can kill me. It's just they dumbed it down so much for the movies. Tolkien wrote the dialogue for you. Just use what Tolkien wrote. Rings of Power isn't as good as these movies. I grant that. But they also didn't have it written by Tolkien. They had to write it themselves. So it's less egregious to me. Like they had to make something out of virtually nothing, and so the bar is different. The I hold the movies to a higher bar because they're adapting something that already was written by a genius, and instead they dumbed it down. Rings of Power didn't have that advantage, and so I don't hold it to the same standard. It's not fair to hold it to the same standard.
Yeah, I still can't say that I enjoy Rings of Power more than Tolkien than the Jackson adaptations.
But I'm not saying about enjoyment. I'm talking about, I guess the metric I'm really trying to use is I don't hold them to the same standard. I'm not as critical of Rings of Power because it wasn't written by Tolkien. The Jackson adaptations were written by Tolkien, and so I hold them to a higher standard. If you're going to adapt the work, adapt it properly. If you're going to create something new, I'm not going to blame whoever wrote Rings of Power for not being Tolkien. That seems a little harsh, right?
I see what you're saying, but there's still like glaring problems with some of the decisions made thus far.
There are, although same with Jackson's. It's just most people don't hold them to the same standard because they saw them when they were younger and often before they read the books. When I read the books, of course, first, and so I see Jackson's adaptations and I see all these glaring changes they made, all these choices they made. It's like, why did you do orcs? This has been a contentious thing in the recently is orcs in the Jackson stuff were made, or we see them getting born out of mud sacks or whatever. Well, that was never ever the case in Tolkien's, not in his later mythology, not in Lord of the Rings, where in the Hobbit, in the book, we've got, what is it, Azog, son of Bolg, or some version of that. Like they talk about orc lineages. The orcs have songs. The orcs are a people. They have homes. In Lord of the Rings, in the books, Sam overhears two orcs talking about how they want to, they don't like that they've been forced into war. They want to escape the reach of Sauron. They don't want anyone lording over them anymore. They want to just go and find somewhere quiet to live. This isn't a life that was chosen for them. Rings of Power in season 1, we see this. So they're fighting for, their own autonomy because they've been under Morgoth and then Sauron's control. We see them rebel in just the beginnings of what we've already seen in season 2. This is not a life they wanted. They're humanizing them. People are being very critical of Rings of Power because the orcs are being given dimension. And yet Tolkien did that. That's Tolkien. Jackson took away that dimension and turned them into mud-born automatons. So
I'm pretty sure, aren't they supposed to be like different subsections of orc though? Like there are the ones that were that were created, like the ones that come out of the mud sacks, and then there are orcs that exist before that are corrupted.
No. See, Saruman bred his own orcs that were Akai, but he didn't breed them. He didn't make them with magic so much as he bred orcs with other beings, the traditional, to get a superior breed of orc. He used the traditional methods, which I'm glad they didn't put in a film. Don't get me wrong.
You're saying you don't watch orc porn? Is that what you're telling me?
I don't.
It's disappointing, Landry.
Oh
you
my
know?
God, no. I know. I revealed something about myself that I'm a real prude when it comes to orc sex.
Where's the orc fetishist that I know?
There are. I'm sure somebody's going to tune in and go, no. Let's see it. That's the thing, though, is yes, there are different, basically, tribes of orcs. Sauron had, the orcs were a corrupted race. They started off as elves, and Morgoth corrupted them, probably with Sauron, basically working as his, chief scientist, more or less, back in the First Age. And so they keep trying to perfect the orc as these perfect fighting drones and whatnot, but they are ultimately biological beings, and Tolkien was very clear on this. And the orcs breed the same way as every other race, But
I'm unsure where we're coming from here, because we were talking about how. Oh, we were talking about in comparison to. Okay,
I'm comparing it to Jackson. Rings of Power. I'm not saying Rings of Power is better. I'm saying Rings of Power, I'm not going to hold it to as high of a standard. I can't expect it to be as good because it wasn't written by Tolkien. And I don't think it's fair to hold it to that level, to expect a modern day television show writer for Amazon to give us something that is at Tolkien's level. Jackson, though, I think it's better.
I'm actually going to take this to go ahead, and I do have to commend them for one thing. Because we get to the point where Galadriel and Elrond, they're in a chase with the 3 rings that were forged.
Yeah.
Because Elrond does not want them to have the rings.
Because
he knows that's bad news. We can't have this. So they go to kill Galahad and try to explain the situation, but Gil Galahad's still like, you know what? I don't want to tell all the elves that are here. We got to go back home. Sorry. We're kind of happy here, so we're going to try those rings anyway.
Right.
And Elrond
politician.
Yeah. And so once Elrond runs to, I thought he ran to a human, but I guess another.
No.
Elf.
A very famous elf.
I didn't hear the name. So I didn't hear that.
Círdan. It's Círdan. Círdan, okay. The shipwright.
Yes. And he's going to basically just dump the rings in the water, but something bumps the boat and knocks the little cloth bag that they're in open just a little bit. And so he goes ahead and he sees it and he pauses, and with the whispers come, and he goes ahead, turns right around, walks as Gil Galahad's singing the news to the other elves. So going ahead saying, Elvenkind, we've got to go back home. Our time here on Middle Earth is over. And he's singing this. And there's more music in here than in the Jackson adaptations, which I've got to go ahead and I got to commend them, because you know what? There's one thing that Tolkien loved, and that was putting everything to song.
Did you watch? Hey, here's the question. Did you watch the extended edition of The Hobbits? The first 2 anyway?
No.
Rather than, watch the first 2 extended editions. They are good. It's just like, how the extended edition of Return of the King fixed some real, I don't know if you saw this or not actually, but for an example, if you just watch the theatrical versions, what happens to Saruman? Right? He's just in his tower and we never see him again. They never resolved that.
No.
And where'd the Palantir come from and all that stuff? The extended edition really fixes a lot of problems with The Hobbit. And one of the things is more feasting and singing in the first film. The second film, you get a lot more Mirkwood, a lot of the stuff that was cut, trying to get across the river in Mirkwood, all this stuff. It's just way more robust, way more fleshed out. There's no fixing that third movie. It's still better with the extended edition, but really the extended edition of the first two, you should absolutely see.
Okay. Yeah, no.
And then you just stop it because they never made a third movie, and it's tragic.
So, but with that, no, I've got to go ahead and say that because singing is a huge thing. I didn't realize until I read just how much singing was in The Lord of the Rings. There's songs.
So much. Oh,
so
yeah.
much.
Well, it's epic ballads and poems. He created a mythology, and this is supposed to be a mythological tale, right? I have issues with the structure and pacing and all of that with Rings of Power, to be fair. I do. This season is a big improvement over season one. It is way more engaging. It's a lot of the stuff that was very boring in season one is now way more interesting with the stakes that are raised. But let's talk a little bit about that and remind me, because I'm 2 episodes ahead of you and I don't want to spoil anything. So why don't you talk about some of the scenes in the episode and I'll try to respond to them. Like what's up with Nori and the stranger. Let's talk about not Gandalf and why I think he's not Gandalf.
It's going to be Gandalf, man. They went ahead of it. We called Halbrand from the start. He's basically Sauron. This is Gandalf.
I don't think so.
More credit than they deserve. They're not going to do something else.
Well, all right. So here's for criteria. You know who the Istari are, right?
Yes.
You know there's 5 of them, right?
Okay.
So Saruman. We know it's not. We know Gandalf. We know Radagast. That's only 3. There are 2 others. You know where those 2 others are in the second? And those 2 show up in the second age, as opposed to the third age. They are there in the second age. They're the first 2 sent. This is actual Tolkien lore. Where do they go? They go to the east. They go to Rhûn. At the end of season 1, where does the stranger feel the stars are taking him? To Rhûn. That's where the blue wizards go. There are 2 blue wizards, and Tolkien wrote 2 different stories for them. 2 not stories, but 2 different, like, what are their fates? He explained in letters and notes.
Then this is going to be the best fake out in history, is what you're claiming, because they've gone ahead. They talk about the staff that he used one and it totally destroyed. He uses one in the second episode here. Totally destroyed, but they
all use staffs.
They call it a Gand. They go ahead, and that is, I believe that's like an Irish term for staffs. Gaelic.
Yeah. They may be, although that's not where Gandalf's name comes from.
I'm telling you, they're going to, because she was already trying to name him here, so something will happen.
So let's go with another note in that. Like the Gandalf isn't Gandalf's name, just for an example. There are 2 blue wizards. They are in the east, which is where this person has gone. There are two versions of the story. In one, Tolkien said they fell to evil and became corrupted by Sauron and worked with him. The other version is no, actually they always fought. They stayed true to the course and they fought against Sauron, and they kept him from growing and more powerful than he would have. And the whole time when Gandalf is doing his stuff in the west, the 2 blue wizards were doing their stuff in the east. Those are just stories we're not told. So I think, and I've said this from the start, I said at the end of season 1, and I said this in our podcast, I think he's going to go to the east. He's looking for the other blue wizard. And I think that what I said then, and I'm pretty sure it's in our podcast, is I'm going to expect to see he's going to find him, and one is going to be corrupted and the other is not, and they're going to be at odds, and that's where we're going to get our wizard tension from. Because they're going to find a way to give us that tension, that Gandalf-Sauron tension. They want to emulate it. But they can't use Gandalf and Sauron because that story, 1, Gandalf shouldn't be there yet. But 2, it can't be Sauron. So where do you get this? Well, you've got 2 wizards just sitting there that they can use. And
I
what do you want to do? They obviously they want to use Gandalf. So they want you to think it's Gandalf so that you're interested and you're invested and eventually go, yeah, he was never Gandalf. He's another guy. And maybe
will
because
be
he's another guy, he's not going to stay good.
I will be legitimately impressed if it's not Gandalf. But I'm not at that state where I can say that. I
Well,
legitimately believe that's what they're going to go ahead and reveal.
listen, they might, and it would be a terrible decision. They might do it, but it does. There's every reason in the world to assume if we go with the lore, if we're actually looking at lore, it's everything is lined up for it to be this other wizard, and there's no reason for it not to be. Everyone is convinced in the world. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's Gandalf. It's so obviously Gandalf." Well, only if you don't take into consideration that there's another guy just like Gandalf walking around in the Second Age.
Look,
Sure.
I'm just saying. Listen. I believe everything you're telling me. I do. I just
You
do
just think
not
they're going to make it
believe-
Gandalf.
I do not believe in their ability to make it not Gandalf. I do not
Well,
believe.
you may be right. You may be
I
right.
may be crazy.
But and of course I don't know any more than you do. But I've been saying for 2 years that I think it's going to be the Blue Wizard, one of the Blue Wizards, and I think we're going to get another Blue Wizard because that is what is out there right now. And it's very easy to go, yeah, this Blue Wizard's a lot like Gandalf. We wanted you to think it was Gandalf. That's what I would do if I was doing it. I would purposely let you think it's Gandalf, and then I would make it not Gandalf. So much so that I said this 2 years ago. So we'll see what happens.
We'll see. We'll see.
And whoever's right owes the other. What do we owe? What are we going to owe? I was going to go with Hostess cupcakes, but it seems banal. Something. Okay. Then at some point we're going to be in the same place. At some point you're coming out to Comic-Con, or I'm going out wherever. I'm not going to Florida, but somewhere that you'll go to. I've been to Florida once. That was good. And whoever's right owes the other a donut.
That, you know what? That is fair.
It's ring-like. It could be the one donut to rule them all.
The one. But it has to be after breakfast. So we have to go for breakfast first, and then after I get you a donut for second breakfast.
I appreciate this. Or I get you a donut. I'm not listening. I should be right, but they could fuck it up. They could fuck it up. Because because the right thing to do would be to make it the Blue Wizards.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't believe they will. There's two different things here. Everything you're saying makes sense to me. Everything that you're saying, big fake out, and you know what? I would respect them. I would respect their decision. I just do not believe that the writers are willing to do that.
I mean, it could be that the executives somewhere saying, well, you got to have Gandalf in it. And they're like, okay, how can we have Gandalf but not Gandalf? Let's appease the studio and let's make even the studio heads think it's Gandalf. And we won't say it's not Gandalf so that everyone can think it's Gandalf, but it's really not Gandalf. And eventually, season 4, where we go, here's his name, and it's Palandio or whatever the Blue Wizard's name is. It's something like that. I forget. I never remember their names.
So we should go ahead and, because everything we've pretty much said has been focused on the first episode, we should go ahead and delve a little bit into the second episode.
Sure.
So the elves put on the rings, and the tree comes back to life. It's shiny, it's bright, and Elrond is very sad because he still believes this is a bad decision. It's a bad decision. But he goes ahead, he goes away. He does not go to the same elf, though. Who does he go to?
Oh, no, he goes back to see Círdan again.
It is Círdan? You sure?
Yeah, he's shaving for some reason, which was weird.
Why would you have him in that first episode look like that, and then you change his look so drastically and say, okay.
I don't know, and it really bothered me. And so Círdan is kind of famously the only elf with a beard. He is the oldest elf in Middle-earth, and to the point where he's showing age, which tells you how old he is. And he is one of possibly the wisest elf in Middle-earth. And he's never mentioned in the Lord of the Rings movies, but he is the one who builds the ships that takes the elves across the sea. He's the only one who knows how to chart that path across the sea. That's his mission. That's his mandate. Um, and he's famously the only elf with a beard. So what do? They show him with a beard, which I was like, yes, they got him right. And the next scene they show him, he's shaving. Why?
No idea.
That was weird.
Yeah. But we do get Halbrand in this episode because he had a whole thing in the first episode where he has to go ahead and say to Adar, "Oh yeah, I'll serve you," after being like beat for information on Sauron.
Mm-hmm.
Even though in the first season, didn't he pretty much call him out? Like,
I don't know. That was a little confusing for me, and partially because the season 1 was so bad that. And bear in mind, I enjoyed season 1, but I recognized it wasn't good. But there are problems in this season 2, and this is all of the stuff between Halbrand, aka Sauron, and Adar is just weird to me. I'm not really a fan of any of that. I don't think it's playing well.
Yeah. But you know what? I will say the reveal was a little much at the end of the episode. Because they go ahead for Brembor, and because he waits because Halbrand's out there, and he was told by Galadriel, "We do not come." What's the term that they use?
Oh, which part? What?
Because she says we do not. It's not associate or anything like that. I don't think it's commune either. It's something like that, though.
Yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. I don't remember.
But he goes ahead. He holds out. He's like, "Tell him I won't see him." And his assistant goes down, says no. And then, oh, no, he has an injury back there. Oh, no, it's starting to rain. Oh, no.
That was, oh, yeah.
And eventually he does go down there. So in episode 1, we do have Gil Galahad that goes ahead. He sends 2 messengers to let Celebrimbor know. It worked. Yeah. Rings worked. We did it. Congrats. Thank you. And
don't talk to that guy. Yeah.
And don't talk to that guy. That's Sauron. But they never make it.
Right.
They never make it, and they don't actually show. It's probably the orcs that killed them.
Right. No, I mean, there's a lot of perils along the way, but I just, okay. So this gets, now again, I think that tell me what the last scene was in episode 2, because it all mushes together and I'm ahead of you. So tell me, I didn't like the whole, he's waiting outside for you. Oh, are we going to let him in? He's so sad out there.
When he goes ahead and lets him in, and he says, "I'm no king."
Right.
And then he like disappears when Celebrimbor goes ahead. He shuts the blinds because it's storming harder.
And boom. He's and he shows up. Okay. I loved this part. I loved his whole. I've been waiting for this. I hated the trailer spoiled this for me. I knew this was coming because I know the lore. This is lore correct. He does appear to Celebrimbor as Anatar, Lord of Gifts. He does say, "I am from the Valar to bring you this art, this crafting." And he's not entirely lying, because he is that kind of being in his true form. He is one of like a lesser tier god functionally. He, but of course he's not sent by the Valar. He's doing it for himself, and he's not Anatar. He's Sauron. But regardless, I loved this moment. It's so over the top. But the problem I have with it is that this is the way it's delivered to us. Is like, after the whole waiting outside. Why did he wait outside? It's not like he's a vampire that needed to be invited in. He could have appeared like this at any time.
No,
he really. Oh, go ahead.
So what it is, the reason why he waits out there is because he's trying to earn his favor. He's showing this willfulness to stand there, not be
This
let
humility,
in. I want to speak with you. We're friends, aren't we? He goes ahead, he levels with him as we're close. We share this bond, and then he reveals, I am this, and it's so much greater. But he humbles himself in the eyes of Celebrimbor.
Right.
No, we are partners. You can call me Anwar. I totally get what they're going for and why he's
okay, and this is one of the reasons I like the execution of his appearance when he shows up, because this also plays very well to Celebrimbor's ego. Celebrimbor is, when we get into the lore, he's a grandson or great grandson or something of Feanor. Feanor, who famously crafted the Silmarils, which the Silmarillion is written about, the name title is based on. He also crafted the Palantir, which were just really toys to him compared to the Silmarils. But he is the greatest elf in terms of creation of all time. And Celebrimbor always feels like he is not living up to that. And he's looking for his moment. And in the lore, go ahead.
And in this episode, that's exactly what.
Yeah, he says. Yeah, he's lamenting the fact that he's finally figured out the thing that's for him to do. It's his calling, his moment. And he even mentions Feanor. He mentions him. And I'm like, this is perfect. This is what I wanted. But I wish that we had had a season. Like, first season, if you're going to do it this way, have Halbrand and Celebrimbor working together the whole season. The fact that it was 5 minutes at the end of the last episode was weird. And that they didn't earn it in season 1. For this great part of season 2, it's on the right course. The problem is the foundation wasn't laid in season 1. But that's not a sin of season 2. It is definitely a sin of season 1.
I will say, because I was looking through some comments, and somebody said that one of the big problems at the end is that he helps him for 5 minutes and then runs. But the fact that he comes back, does this reveal, it kind of balances out the problems with him running at the end of the first season.
It helps. It definitely helps. And I love visually the reveal is on freaking point for me. We get to see, like, we get used to, because there's so many fantastic things in Middle Earth that seem just amazing. It's important to remember when we throw around terms like the Valar or the Maiar, the spirits of Maiar, or that become Gandalf or Radagast or the two blue wizards or the Balrog or even Sauron, that these beings are to the elves gods. Gandalf, almost no one knows what Gandalf really is in Middle Earth. No one knows originally, except one person figures it out immediately in the lore, and that's actually what's his name, the shipwright. Oh. He's the one who recognizes them when the Istari first appear in Middle Earth. He's the only one who knows for a very long time. Círdan. He recognizes the spirits of the Valar for what they are, or Maiar. But if we were to see them in their true forms, these are angelic beings of spirit. And so we get a sense of what an elf might expect that to be. Notice he looks like a godly elf, which I think also plays to this in a very subtle way to Celebrimbor's ego. Like, because they're not elves, but he sure took the appearance of a godly elf.
Yep. To go ahead and feed that. Go ahead and seduce him further into their partnership now. We should go ahead and talk about the dwarves a little bit, because bad things happen. At the end of the last season, Durin and owned.
Durin and Durin fought.
And now we have father and son just too angry to speak to each other. We have Disa being the best. Still love her.
Disa was the worst in this. I'm so mad at Disa in this. Let me tell you why. Because Disa was the one in season 1 going, stand up against your father. You tell him who's boss. You're Durin. You're the heir. You tell him. Let's get that mithril. And this season, she's like, you shouldn't have done that. You should apologize. You encouraged him to do this. Like I enjoy the character of Disa. I think the actress is doing a great job. I
But
think the character is
I
fun,
feel,
but she screwed things up in season 1.
but the thing was that whenever he went to, and she says it's not about itself, it's because of how far they went in anger. And so she's not saying to apologize about the act. The
Right.
act is what she's saying to apologize. Apologize for the conversation.
Right. And what I would like to see is her go to the king and go, you know what? I actually, you know how it is with your wife? I pushed him to do that. That was me. I made him all crazy and sent him up to you, and I really shouldn't have done that. My bad. Maybe talk to your son because I kind of screwed that up for everyone.
It wasn't just her. I feel like
It wasn't,
a
no.
lot of blame on her.
No. It wasn't just her, but he was sitting there saying, no, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. She's like, yes, you can. And he's like, oh, I guess I can. He still made the choice, but she was definitely playing the devil on his shoulder in season 1, encouraging him to stand up against his father. And now when he did, and it went inevitably very badly, she's not doing her part of the mea culpa. He definitely, both the father and son are wrong. Disa is wrong with them.
Okay.
I'd like to see
I
all
can agree
of
with
them.
that. I still love her. I'm not gonna
Look, no, Disa's she's great. She's great. She's fun. She's entertaining. The actress is really great. But the character, they're doing this thing where, like let her be part of the problem. Don't just portray her as a solution.
I will also say because of, and the reason why she goes ahead and she is insistent. Okay, you should go and speak with him. You should go and apologize because she does tell the king that he needs to call upon him too. Whenever they go ahead and they test out the caverns, because they go ahead and sing and know where to go in the mountain, but now they can't because of what has happened in Mordor. Right across, and it's weakened the foundation. And dwarves die, but they don't say that.
Right.
And it's terrifying. And she says that she's frightened. So the situation is far more grave than it had appeared.
Yes. Oh no, I really do like the idea that what happened in Mordor has had consequences in Moria, which actually makes a lot of sense. Their kingdom is built very meticulously. There's this idea that it's going to, how do I put it? Just the resonant effect, literally and figuratively. No, it's all playing very well. Season 2 so far, we're not very far in, but season 2 so far has really done a very good job of, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word, but it has undone a lot of problems in season 1. Season 1 still has those problems, but season 2 is definitely redeeming.
A lot of people say they've course corrected.
Yeah, I that said, I mean, Amazon's come out clearly and saying we didn't course correct at all. This was always where we were going. We wrote this before you saw season 1, so this is just the show. Whether that's true or not, who knows? But I will say that there's certain things they're doing that people are commenting on as course correction that I thought were evident as plans before, like the Blue Wizards. Time will tell.
Delusions are failing you, my friend. I don't know. I know Tom Bombadil is coming, and you know what? If he doesn't sing, then it's over. The show is instant death. Instant death. I need you to understand this. Tom Bombadil. I hated Tom Bombadil when I first was reading it, but you know what?
Of course.
The longer I went through it, the longer you sit with Tolkien's ridiculous creation that is Tom Bombadil, the more you love him.
We should do, okay, listen, let's do a mini episode at some point about who is Tom Bombadil, and let's just discuss that, because I have a whole spin-off conversation there that's too much for this episode. No one really knows, but I have thoughts that I've not seen explored properly by anyone else. So we'll talk about this later.
Adol Maridol. Sounds fine to me. Uh, but I think that's yeah, I'm impressed thus far with what they've done to go ahead and correct things. It's still not perfect. Nothing is perfect.
No,
But
I could think of a dozen ways I'd make this different.
I was very upset at the end of the first season, and the fact that I am not upset after watching these first 2 episodes, that's a very good sign.
I was debating with somebody online because I like to do that sometimes. And who's like, it's terrible, it's terrible. Like I didn't watch it, but I know it's terrible kind of attitude, the usual thing you see. And to which I said, listen, it's not perfect. But if you want to point me in the direction of another live action Tolkien show I can watch that's better, I'll happily watch that one instead. I'm not talking Lord of the Rings, that's been out a long time. I'm talking a current live action television show based on Middle Earth. If we have an alternate for me to pick, as somebody who, bearing in mind, I've been a Tolkien fan since I can remember. When I was familiar with The Hobbit by the time I was 3 or 4 years old. It was my favorite thing. I feel like I've waited my whole life for stuff like this. And when I see people want to rage cancel it, I feel like I have to remind people, it's like not all of us have the privilege of being in our early 20s, and maybe we can wait 40 years for something better to come along. I've already done that wait. I've already waited it. I'm in my 50s now. How long do I have to wait? How many opportunities do I get for another version of this? I want this one to last as much as possible, and I'm going to enjoy it for what it is, even when it's not great.
We need to get you to become a producer, and you can just produce multiple fantasy shows of different varying.
Did I tell you, dude? I basically the equivalent of drunk dialed the Tolkien estate. Did I tell you about that?
No.
Okay, so I got inebriated one night. This is just like a couple of years ago, and I maybe 3. I messaged. I found the contact information for rights holding and licensing for Tolkien Estate, and I wrote them and said, "Look, I make comic books. I want to know what has to happen to make this happen. To do like an anthology series based on Lord of the Rings with tales that kind of tell like basically tale adaptations, but also." Other things, and I got a response the next day, and it was a very nice response saying, unfortunately, you'd have to talk to whatever like we don't have it's not a right thing that we can relinquish. It would be very interesting, and it would be really fantastic to see this sort of thing explored, but here's who you contact and here's the channels you'd need to go through. It was so nice. I didn't at the time, I went ahead a little further and I started trying to pursue it with a comics publisher. I think it was IDW. Whoever was who was running IDW at the time was a friend of mine. So I messaged it to him, and he said, maybe this is something we could make happen. Maybe we could license this. And I think that a lot of things happened that got in the way of that. But I got real close to as close as anyone might hope to get to kind of managing my own Tolkien-based comic book series at one point, just a few years ago.
I would say don't stop chasing that, but
I'm not going to stop. I'm always chasing this stuff, and then I'm sorry, I think I got to rope you in. You're going to work with me, so you better update yourself on the lore. That would be fun.
Okay.
Then we could argue. I know you haven't written comics before, but how hard can it be? I do it. I got no background. It's not like I got educated in this.
All right, send me a sample of how you script a comic, and then I'll try to find my way.
That would be fun. I should send you samples. Actually, that would be fun. So anyway, these 2 episodes, I'm giving them a big thumbs up. I don't know if we're doing rankings on this, but I'm definitely giving it 2 big thumbs up because it is not perfect, but it really is enjoyable. And I would say, and this is what I was trying to emphasize earlier, all adaptations of Tolkien's work have flaws. The Bakshi, the Rankin Bass, the Jackson, they all have different flaws, and they all have wonderful scenes too. And I'm just looking at the wonderful scenes, and I'm enjoying it for those, because where else are we going to get Middle Earth on screen And how many times will we get it on screen? It's not that many. I think I just named all of them.
Well, we're going to get the War of Rohan,
Sure.
and then we're going to get the Hunt for Gollum. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I do.
Yeah.
But I'm still on the fence isn't the right term. I have enjoyed these first 2 episodes of this season, but
Sure.
you know what? There were a lot of episodes of season 1 that I didn't take as badly as some, and then the end came. So I'm still hesitant because I've known we've gone down this path before, and let's hope that it has a better season finale. But we have to get through the next episode. So join us next week as we review episodes 3 and 4 of The Rings of Power.
Yes. Very excited to do so.
Yes, me too. Because I think I get to see Tom Bombadil. And then we'll know if this show is worth anything.
I'm not going to disagree. If there's no singing, I'm out. I think it's going to be interesting because even if it's bad, we get to see some things on screen that we've never seen before. So let's see what they can do. And what a challenge. What a serious hardcore challenge to do. Bombadil.
Yeah. I know. There's a reason why Jackson didn't even. He was like, no. All right, that's it for us for now. We will see you next time. Fare thee well, speak friend, and exit. Bye.